I'm going to keep it on because it's exciting.
That's the theme tune to the Arts Partnership.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I love that piece. That's another Quinn piece called The Next Adventure. I thought we should shake it up on day 7. Shake it up. Next adventure.
Oh my God.
Life is an adventure. This is all an adventure. Everything we're doing, including these videos. I mean, it's not the most roller coastery of adventures, these videos, but it's a little bit of an adventure, don't you think, Dr. Merritt?
It's the path less trodden, as they say.
Sure.
Bobby.
Although I'm not sure that we can argue that we are taking the path less trodden with live streaming, since
Well,
that's,
yeah,
you know,
no, there aren't many people talking about what we talk about.
that is true. That is true. Okay, let's. I lost the deal. Sorry. Thank you. All right, number 7 today. 7, I think, starts to speak to the time period when these were written. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows.
Yes, because we all speak like that now. Yes, hello, fellows. Well,
At least, I guess it doesn't say fellas, so there's that.
Yeah, well, let's remember this was written in 1934. It was first published in 1938. So
And were these promises written then too?
around then, you remember they were coming out of Prohibition as well when Alcohol
Sure.
Anonymous started.
Sure. Yeah, how well did Prohibition work if they had to develop an entire program for alcoholics based on a time period where it was illegal to drink? That's kind of entertaining. How are you? I didn't even ask, for heaven's sakes. We're off our game.
I'm good. Well, we've just had an endurance spin class. So.
Yeah,
So,
it's all right. It is what it is.
no one asked me to lift anything.
Okay. My mother's commenting now on the 2 people who are also often tuning in. Good morning, Sandy, Barney, Mother, and Brenna. Okay, so what do you want to talk about? What is it? We'll lose interest in what? Our own stuff and
Yeah.
care about fellas?
You do. It's amazing. When I got gripped by addiction, I actually stopped. Well, I kind of stopped being me, and now that I'm me again, you do feel fantastic about the fact that you're back to who you were in the first place. I mean,
Who you're supposed to be.
I am now today a way better and more useful human being than I was 3.5 years ago.
Yes.
The reason, one of the things that kept me going is I never drank at work, and you hear these stories. I've heard this story 3 or 4 times about educators that said they came home, they made sure they were ready to do their job the next day. They didn't go to sleep, they passed out.
Yeah.
They got up, they somehow managed to do it, they came home, and that part of the cycle started again. But they were trying to keep their professional job going while everything, including their own personal job, was their personal lives were just turning to trash, and they didn't notice it because they were focused on their job. And I think that's what I was doing. As long as my job was fine or okay, I thought everything was okay, and that you and I were just in a rough patch because I just wasn't thinking at all. And that's the power of your addiction. It does overtake you. I mean, that's all those statements alone. If you sit there and think about them, they make absolutely no sense. You know, for 3.5 years, I've been going to sleep.
At a real time.
At a real time, and I'm tired. That's one of the reasons why, you know, no one likes sweating for 45 minutes on a bike at 6:30 in the morning, but it keeps me in that rhythm of I'm kind of tired. I'll go to bed. We go to bed early. Sometimes we go to bed. We're like 8-year-olds.
Yeah, let's not discuss it publicly.
Sometimes the sun's still up. But you know, it's healthiness too. And if you're healthy, you have a healthy mind. They're all connected. So that statement about you are you're more useful and you have a usefulness is absolutely true. I mean, I can do things. I actually forgot that I'm reasonably handy at doing stuff.
You're really underselling yourself today, Dr.
Well,
Mary.
yeah, but what I
You're
mean,
incredibly
I had,
handy.
But I kind of forgot that I knew how to do that. And I remember when I first got sober, you asked me to do something. I thought I can't do that, and you said something to the effect of, Well, you used to, and I'm sure you can work it out.
Yeah.
And I did.
This is kind of off topic to the promise, but it's on topic to something you said, and I think there's real power to this, and I think this is the hard part of this story to talk about, so I guess I'll apologize in advance. Maz talks often about the fact that he was focused solely on work. If I go to work, A, I can get away from alcohol because it's not there. B, I'll keep my job. I'll be a good teacher. I'll be a good researcher. And I'm not saying people at work didn't know that Maz was drinking, because
They did.
They did. And they reached out. And that's a whole other conversation that we'll talk about one of the days after the 12 Promises, because that's a complicated scenario. But in the middle of all of this, Maz's unbelievable fixation and devotion to work infuriated me. You know, I would say to him, it's time for bed. It's 11 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. I would get up in the middle of the night. It's 1, 2 o'clock. You have to come to bed. And he would say to me, I'm working, Dana. I'm grading. I'm writing a test. Whatever he was doing. And he was driven by work. And it infuriated me. I mean, I'm not saying his job's not important. I always understood his job was important. But I used to say to him, Maz, if you don't answer this email till tomorrow morning, no one's going to die. You're not a high-risk heart surgeon. You're not a combat warrior who's got to go in and pull people out of buildings. I mean, what are you talking about? It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You don't have to answer this email. But he was driven to do work. And I think some of it was that's where you felt some control. And some of it was, if you could convince me that you were downstairs working, then I would leave you alone and you could drink peacefully.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of both there, actually. You know, with lovely sobriety and hindsight, that's absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. I was still trying to feel useful, even though I knew. I mean, you think, well, that's silly. You were down drinking and trying to work. What, didn't you make the connection? Well, no.
Yeah. But
No, you don't. That's a tragedy right there in itself.
But this is where I think you can maybe tip this a little bit as a positive, actually. If you've got somebody in your life who's fixated on some piece of trying to be useful or have some control or something. When I saw it as a negative in the moment, I can look back with hindsight and say, if I could have ever helped him realize that his dogged determination to do his job 24 hours a day and to do it really well could be applied to dogged determination to try to drink less, maybe that would have helped. And this is where I wanted to point out the hard part of this story. So the day that Maz transitioned from present to deliriousness as he was working through the alcohol in his system, and he was absolutely out of his mind, they finally had to strap him to a bed. 4 male nurses had to come in and hold his arms and legs and strap him to the bed. And it had gotten so bad in our lives that I watched all of this with absolutely no emotion. It was like I wasn't there or I was watching a stranger. But he broke a strap. We're talking about those medical straps, you know, that are about this thick, that they had tied to the bed. And he broke the strap that his right hand had been held to the bed with. And the only thing that I could think in that moment was, my God, if you can fight this hard, if you have the physical capacity to break a strap, is it possible you can also break this addiction? If you will fight this hard, can you also fight this hard for that? Can you fight for us? And I even wrote about it in my journal. And it It was at once both abjectly horrifying to watch and my first glimmer of hope, because he had become so weak and useless, and to see him fight gave me some tiny inkling that there was still something in his brain useful, something that was able to endure. So maybe there's a way to help shift that lens of shifting it from being a pure criticism at how fixated your addict is on something to, can you shift your fixation to this? Again, I don't know that it would have mattered for Maz, but I can look back and realize that actually that tenacity to maintain some small semblance of usefulness is also the tenacity that he brought to staying sober.
That's good, because there are a couple of the other promises we'll be talking about in the next couple of days do actually address that you will, when we talked about the you will find inner peace, which is absolutely true. You will, if the fight is, one of them is basically, you can paraphrase it as, this fight is going to be worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I didn't almost miss that day of Maz's time because it took so long for the tranquilizers and all of the medication that they were giving him to finally knock him out. I mean, it took like 7 hours. Because again, he was so much stronger than what he was exhibiting in his day-to-day life. As the alcohol was leaving him, even in that first moment, the alcohol was exiting and his fight for life was entering. Maybe you can, I don't know, maybe you can encourage somebody to have the bravery to try to walk through that door. And I know that not everybody has that extreme moment. But if you're with a serious alcoholic, I can't imagine that won't happen to them as the alcohol starts to leave their cells and the biochemistry shifts, and that's as much science as I can discuss about it.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, it's scary. I don't remember it at all, but I've talked to people who do remember it. But the other side, coming through the other side, is when the pain goes away that they described, they've all said it's worth it too.
Yeah. Everybody wants to feel useful.
Yes, because I know I didn't, and that really depressed me. And in my state of mind, of course, that meant, well, I'll be all right if I have another drink. And that's the loop that you're in. I knew I was depressed, and there was lots of people who were way more depressed that I've talked to even at that time. There was a line I never crossed, or thought it with a thought that some of them did.
Are you going to share
Well,
that?
I never felt suicidal.
Oh, okay. Which is great. Great. Because here's what's true. This is absolutely true. If you're living with an addict, let me just say this. If your addict commits suicide, or if you determine that it is impossible to stay, you know that Maz and I both support whatever decision you need to make for you, for your children, for your life, even for your addict. We are in full support of that. This is a judgment-free space. But if you leave in the middle of addiction, you will never, ever have the closure that Maz and I got. If he had died in the hospital, which was so likely for a period of that time, I would have thought that this was what marriage was, that this was what relationships were, and it would have ruined me. And so, in so many ways, I am as blessed in Maz's sobriety as he is. Even though it wasn't physically damaging to me, the emotional toll of living with an addict is profound. And to be able to see the other side of it, you can get to it. And you have referenced even that there are people who divorce their spouse, get sober, and then are able to reach a new, much happier, much more
Yeah.
level relationship with your children, with your spouse, whatever, your family. It's not about staying together. It's about trying to find that closure on the insidiousness of addiction.
It's about living, is what it really comes
Yeah.
down to.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And what is true for you as the one watching the addict is that you're not really living either. You're not really useful either, because your whole life is about trying to manage what the addict's going to say or do, or how they'll respond, or what will happen when you're out in the world with them. And then if there's violence, of course, you're also thinking about that piece too, I'm sure. So this robs everybody of feeling truly useful. And you can't really think about anybody else because you're so fixated on what your addict's going to do. So, we've gone over our 15 minutes.
We have. We better
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
Have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.